a dark room they were showing. That's a dark room, yeah. There we go.
Good morning, and welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of October 11th, 2016. Let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the chambers. The order of the business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda, and anyone wishing to come and speak on these items should come forward after the clerk reads the items. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, and then those opposed. Testimony will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker, and as a reminder, a timer will sound after 4 minutes. After all public hearing is done, the council will vote on the resolutions. Will the clerk please call our first item of business?
Yes, I'll call items 1 and 2. They're approving the 2016-17 city tax rate of .33366 per $100 of assessed valuation, and approving the 2016-17 city tax rate of .32194 per $100 of assessed valuation.
Would anyone like to come forward and speak to these items? Would you just go ahead and tell us your name and address?
It's Cameron Murphy, 1001 West Dillon Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, obviously.
Welcome. Welcome back.
Yeah. It's early.
Yes, it is.
So I don't know which one we're doing first, but
You can speak to either one. We're calling them together. So.
oh, perfect. So I think what's interesting is there are a couple things happened during this whole ordeal. And it's the first time it's ever happened. Interestingly, in 2010, of course, the ordinance changed, which is interesting, that prior to that point in time, if there was a disagreement, it would go to the last budget in which there was an agreement, which would have been the previous year, which is frankly a much better way to do things. So, you know, we really took a regressive step in the charter as far as our way of thinking as a society. And another thing that I think happened, it's interesting. Jane mentioned last time I was here that, there had been a compromise on the table. And after having done a little bit more research, I found out that indeed there was a compromise, and that was the 32 cents as far as the budget. The previous biennial budget was about 31 cents, right? Just we'll ballpark it don't have to go out to all those digits. So I found it to be rather disingenuous that we're pinning this on, these 4 people don't want to compromise. Well, apparently there was a compromise, and that was the city council's passed budget. And then, of course, the mayor has no reason to compromise. If I'm the mayor, I have my 2 phantom votes. I get 3 people to agree with me. I have no reason to compromise whatsoever. And so I found that the other problem that we had was, we had 4 people that, wanted to do some of the wheeling and dealing kind of behind closed doors, and we had 3 people in the mayor who said, yeah, we can do that, and then we'll tell the public that none of that actually occurred, and that these 4 people just won't compromise. So I find that, we have some real honesty issues with the public. I think we have 3 people here who were rather dishonest, and 4 people who are trying to be as honest as they can. And the mayor, of course, is probably the most dishonest of all. Which, is he even here this morning? Where is he? I think he needs to be here at least once every 6 months. Or we can always recall him. It's an automatic recall at that point, FYI, for those who have maybe not read it. Another thing I would suggest, So it's just in the future that in all budget talks for the four that are on the side of a republic, don't do things behind closed doors. Make it very public. Say, we don't want to have a tax increase, but we'll meet you in the middle, just like all good negotiators do. So that way because you have to remember, y'all are trying to be honest people, and you assume other people are honest people. And that's the way I run my business. I still take a check from all over the country because I send you a product, I can't maintain my end of the deal. I assume that you're an honorable person and you're going to, pay me what's owed. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times, especially in politics these days, that just ain't the case. That you can make a deal kind of behind closed doors and get it out there, and then they come and stab you in the back, and that's not very honorable. So I have a real problem with that. So it's just a word of advice on as far as from the future. Don't assume that the opposition is going to be honorable just because you are. And further, I got my 1 minute left. So I think we got to change the charter, go back to the way it was. Basically, we can repeal the thing from 2010. That would be the way to go. And the other thing that we can do is that we can use there's a way we can pass it 3-0, so you guys can have it passed. You guys can make a special rule. Using the equilibration mode, which is if something were to happen and you guys need to pass an emergency resolution, which this would qualify, y'all can make special rules, pass it 3-0. Also, there actually is a point of contention because, as I understand it, the contempt of court would apply to everybody here, not just the four. So there's actually a point of leverage. So for the three of you, it depends on who's going to blink first. The three who don't really seem to like little r republicanism, and the three who do. And the question is, who's going to blink? Because contempt of court is for everybody, not just the four who were against the mayor. So I'd just like to point that out for future reference.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward and speak to these items? Could you please state your name and address for all of us? Thank you.
Chair Gaylor Baird, members of the council, Gary Aldridge, ALDRIDGE, 7112 South 45, 516. I'm one of the owners. For inquiring minds, Friday the 13th comes on a Thursday this month. If I had the answers, I'd be in charge. Do I look like I'm in charge? Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake to Captain Benjamin Franklin Pierce, MASH 4077, Korea, 1950-something. 13 NRS 501 et sec, aka the Nebraska Budget Act, allows citizens, taxpayers, the owners, to, quote, offer intelligent and informed support, opposition, criticism, suggestions, or observations relating to both a proposed budget and or final tax request. Nothing in the Budget Act proscribes or prescribes what support, opposition, criticism, suggestions, or observations may be offered, only that citizens are allowed to assist policy formation. Quote, GOP to forego budget appeal, the Star, A1, above the fold, 8 October 2016. How did we get to this point? Well, action by the council, driven by one political persuasion, creates a mandamus. That mandamus results in a decision by a court of competent jurisdiction. That court decision now establishes here today what some did not want and others did. Along the way, unsanitary and or toxic wash goods are exposed. Some on the council characterize action by the mayor as, quote, intimidation, and would, quote, put the city at risk. The mayor and/or staff demonstrating a mental constipation say of the council majority action, quote, time was of the essence, suggesting council action may be, maybe, skating dangerously close to a contempt. I swear, do the parties involved ever stop? Just stop and listen to yourself. This sounds much like a playground exchange between elementary students. Are so, am not, am so, are not. Comments and/or observations by my 4-year-old granddaughter are more lucid and intelligent than this quarrel between what may or may not be adults. It also demonstrates once again that 13 NRS 501 et sec, aka the Nebraska Budget Act, is and always has been an irrelevant and/or useless scrap of paper. Ain't democracy beautiful? The resolution or solution in a democracy or republic, whichever word you prefer, from time to time we have elections. Elections, that is how a democracy or republic survives.
Would anyone else like to testify? All right. Seeing none, does anyone have any staff questions? All right. Discussion.
We need a motion first.
Oh, can we get a motion, please?
Okay, our first one is 16R 222.33366 per $100. This was introduced by Jane Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Carl. Discussion? Cindy?
Thank you. I have a prepared statement that I'd like to read into the record, and I have a copy for you, Teresa. I'd like to direct the clerk to make sure that this goes in the minutes, word for word, please. Thank you. Wow, this last 17 months on the city council has been quite an education for me. A child of divorced parents, I was a confused teenager who dropped out of high school and spent time homeless on the streets of Lincoln. Over the years, I experienced personal and financial struggles. Through determination and grit, and with the help of some who poured wisdom into my life, I eventually went back to school, became an attorney, and here I am today, an elected official. I'm a regular person who came to City Hall believing that the purpose of government is to serve the best interests and improve the quality of life for all of the people. Over the last 17 months, I have instead learned that at the top of the executive branch of city government, there is a desire to rule rather than to serve and to view government as a game. I'm dismayed to find that this administration would rather intimidate than negotiate. I'm disgusted that it will stop at nothing to fulfill the desire to dig deeper and deeper into taxpayer pockets without true regard for the reality of what that means for so many people. I'm appalled that the mayor would risk the safety and well-being of Lincoln residents in order to get his way, when at all cost. When he vetoed a county-passed levy, the mayor left this city facing the possibility of a $3.5 million hole. He exposed the citizens to risk that there would not be enough money to pay for vital police and fire services and other services unless this council forfeited its right to appeal and voted his way today. I'm dismayed that my Democrat colleagues assist the mayor in this tyranny and that they are not as shocked as I am that the mayor could force elected officials to vote his way and is willing to go to court to prove it. But then maybe my colleagues' complicity should not surprise me. It is my impression that my Democrat colleagues may have already had to give over their own voice more than once. Over the last 17 months, I have heard people talk about partisan politics and blame that on the majority. But I have witnessed exactly the opposite, that the Democrats on this council have determined to walk in lockstep with the mayor, even if to do so is not in the best interest of Lincoln residents. The majority has moved things forward, but no matter how good they may be for the city, if they are not exactly what the mayor wants, my Democrat colleagues vote no. The majority passed a recycling ordinance, and though they know that recycling is good for Lincoln, because the ordinance did not have exactly what the mayor wanted, Councilwoman Leary Ann Gaylor Baird, Councilwoman Jane Raybold, and Councilman Carl Eskridge voted no. The majority also passed a resolution to place a very important stormwater bond on last May's ballot. Each of my colleagues talked about the importance of city infrastructure as a priority. But when the measure did not cost taxpayers as much money as the mayor wanted, again, council members Leary and Gaylor Baird, Jane Raybold, and Carl Eskridge voted not to even put it on the ballot. The good people of Lincoln overwhelmingly passed the bond. Then we get to a budget process where the mayor's budget was kept secret from the council when many of us wished to help solve any budget shortfall so that the city could live within its means. The mayor was not interested in hearing recommendations to save citizens money, but instead wanted us to find some other way to raise money somewhere else to fund his increased spending. This is unacceptable. And again, the mayor had the help of my Democrat colleagues who offered a single take-it-or-leave-it proposal that still raised taxes. All were unable or unwilling to make tough choices to help this city live within its means. So they helped the mayor push his tax increase through, and even to find a way to force those of us who tried to save you money to vote for this tax increase. Before I cast my vote, or a vote, I should say, I want to say two things to Lincoln residents. First, please know that this is not my vote. My vote has been taken from me by the mayor and the court. Second, I want to apologize to Lincoln residents. I know that some of our residents are okay with a tax and other increases will go unnoticed by them, and I'm glad that they're doing well. But that is not true for everyone in Lincoln, whom we should be protecting and creating a better quality of life. Councilwomen Leary and Gaylor Baird and Jane Raybold have been financially privileged through life, and I know the increase will not bother them. The department directors hired by the mayor and who helped put the mayor's budget together and who will spend your money will get raises between $2,000 and $4,800 under the mayor's budget and this forced increase. The increase will not bother them. The mayor himself will get a raise of about $2,500 under the budget and this forced increase. The increase will not bother him either. So, to Lincoln's senior citizens and to the blind, disabled, and retired and veterans among us who live on fixed incomes, I'm sorry that I am being forced to vote for an increase that makes it harder for you to live within your means when your city government is not willing to do the same. To those families who work so hard to make ends meet, and those families of the 46% of Lincoln school children, our school children, who live in poverty, I'm sorry. I've heard you, and I know that to many of you, even a $17 or $20 increase in taxes or rent related to tax increases does not mean you just have to do without a pizza. But it may mean you are not able to buy new shoes for one or more of your children or to buy a winter coat. And it may mean that you have to choose at some point between food on the table or paying your utilities. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm being forced to vote to add to your burden. Being a burden is not what I'm about, and increasing your taxes rather than living within its means is not what your city government should do right now. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Carl.
I'll tell a story. In 1878, 1877. No, 1887, excuse me. In 1887, Lincoln was 20 years old, the state was 20 years old. City Council was charged with contempt, indeed found guilty of contempt by an Eighth Circuit judge. The situation that was going on at the time was there was an office in the community, office called a police judge. I think the office was something like a vice officer. And this individual did a good job, did a great job in policing the community and dealing with the problems at hand, which primarily were issues like gambling and prostitution and alcohol issues. Some things change, some things don't. So what happened was the city council, well, this individual did a great job collecting the fines, but he didn't do such a good job in turning them into the city. And so, city council, the mayor, there were 11 of us at that time, interestingly, and the person was a scoundrel. Wasn't doing their job, and we or the mayor or all of us together fired him. Well, this was appealed to the courts and somehow got into federal courts to the Eighth Circuit, and the Eighth Circuit judge said, you can't do that. I think because this person was a judge. We wouldn't have authority over a judge. Well, the court ordered the council to hire him back. You got to take him back. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that. And so our predecessor stood up to the court and said, no, we're not doing that. The mayor and all of the council members at the time spent a week in Douglas County Jail until this matter got forwarded to the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, and they dealt with it and said, no, there's no jurisdiction here. We got out of jail, and the individual remained fired. It's just a little history lesson. We've had issues before, and hopefully nobody spends a night in jail. That would not be good for any of us. We've heard some words already this morning about compromise, and I think all of us, hopefully all of us, are open to compromise. I know that we worked hard to try to find a compromise measure. We found what we hoped would be a compromise that was halfway between the budget the council approved and the budget the mayor submitted, and did not get support for that. And we felt the need to fund the costs, the needs of the city. And you can itemize what those important needs are in terms of police and fire, public safety, public transportation, all the infrastructure issues, the looming threat of the emerald ash borer, the police and fire pension, all of the kinds of challenges that we face as a community. And we balance that. I think all of us try to balance that between those costs and the burden on all of us as taxpayers. We realize that any tax dollar is important, and we have a fiduciary responsibility to watch over those carefully. But we also realize that the city's budget, the city council's budget portion of the property tax is approximately 15% of every dollar, of every property tax dollar. For all of those services that the city provides, it's approximately 15 cents on the dollar. Last week at our special meeting to set the property tax levy, I voted no. I voted no on both of the resolutions that were before us. Remember where we were at the time. The jury was still out, or the judge, and we were still waiting for the judge determination. The meaning of the charter language concerning the mayor's ability to veto council's budget, to replace council's budget with his proposed budget, and also then the question of the council's legal duty to set the levy based upon the approved budget. That was before Judge Ott at the time. At that meeting, I agreed to vote for the measure that Judge Ott deemed to be the measure that was identified in the city charter. And I asked that all of us do the same thing. It's not a big ask. It's simply asking that we follow the law according to the plain and ordinary meaning of the voter-approved city charter, which states that we have an individual and a joint duty together to fund our city budget. Judge Ott has now ruled, and I agreed to do, and today I will agree to do, as I mentioned last week, and support the finding of the judge. And again, I urge us all to do the same. Thank you.
Anyone else? Trent?
I think Cindy put it right when she said that the judge has taken away our ability to vote. And I think that the judge has taken away the discretion of each member sitting up here today. I know that some of us may not feel that way, but I would challenge you to think of how this would work in a different situation when you were on the other side. And challenge you to think that way because I don't think that the way the charter reads is the way we want our city to operate, and the way we want to see future budget processes work. This hasn't been a great process. Although I think the one good thing that we've learned out of this is that we have an opinion of the court of what the law is. And that is, only the opinion of that court. Could have been changed by a different court. We won't know. But I still don't think that that's the process that we want for our city. That a budget can be introduced and stand that way. I think we need a different process for our city. I'm going to comply, as I said in the paper a couple days ago. I'm going to comply with the judge's order. I think that's the best way to move this city forward. I think that that's the best way for us to start moving down the path of doing the great things that we've done over the past couple years to, put up buildings in this city, to keep us moving forward, to start solving the problems that we set out to solve within the budget process, and just kind of get this body back to a place where we're not talking about the budget and only the budget, and start talking about the other things that affect this city, and keep it going. I hope that we can remain the body that we see behind the wall here. There's a lot of friendships here. There's a lot of mutual respect. I don't think that this process has damaged us in the relationships that are here, and I want to see us continue to move forward that way, and maybe let the public see a little bit more of that as we move forward in the future. Thank you.
Jane?
I am going to support this property tax rate. It's our duty, it's our obligation. We have a growing city. We have a growing and thriving city. We have a city that has done so much good for so many. The budget that was worked on and proposed by the mayor, and we had every opportunity to compromise and make sure that that burden to our taxpayer is fair and not onerous. I think each and every one of us on this podium today are very concerned about those in our community, first and foremost. The compromise that was put out in a very genuine fashion was to reduce what the mayor was asking in half, because we recognize the burden on those in our community that struggle with their day-to-day obligations. I am going to support this because our city is growing. Since 1990, it's expanded its territory by over 30 miles. And since the mayor came on board, it has increased by 7.4 miles. Our city population has increased. Lincoln and fire rescue calls are up 22%. And the majority of our budget, 50% of our budget, goes to public safety that impacts all of us. I'm very proud that the property tax rate that we're going to be voting on in a few minutes supports all that. It supports our parks, which constantly run a $1.6 million deficit. It keeps abreast of our pension obligations. It fully funds our certificate of participation bond obligations. It funds the important things that reach so many in our community. I think the mayor said it the best when he issued his press release after Judge Ott had ruled. Mayor Beitler said, "The rule of law is a fundamental underpinning of a democratic society. Democracy cannot function if those governed and those who govern do not follow the law." And I will support this property tax.
Well, in closing, I just want to say that budgets present difficult decisions. How much money do we need to fund our city's growth and well-being? What must be done now and what must wait until tomorrow? And around what issues can we build compromise and consensus? And what's less difficult than the answers to these questions, what's clear, looking back on this particular budget process, is that everyone involved, the council, all 7 of us, the mayor, city staff, and citizens, care deeply about the budget and what it means for Lincoln's future. It's also clear that this budget includes many things of which we can all be proud. So I really just want to say thank you to everyone who wrote letters, emails, who called, who came down to a special public hearing at 7:30 in the morning, like today. We appreciate the public input we receive, and I want to thank my colleagues and the mayor for the hours that they have poured into this process. It's my hope that the dedication that this budget process shows, illustrates, highlights, makes perfectly clear, is the same dedication that will allow us to find consensus as we move forward from this. Please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 2 was introduced by Christensen.
Move to indefinitely postpone.
Second.
Motion to postpone indefinitely made by Trent and seconded by Roy. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
I move adjournment.
Second.
Moved by Roy, seconded by Jane. Please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.